The morning sun barely peeked over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, Tennessee, on a crisp October day in 2024 when I stood in my kitchen, cradling a steaming mug of black coffee. The quiet of the moment shattered with a guttural roar machinery, heavy and relentless, tearing through the stillness. At first, I figured it was a neighbor's tractor kicking off the fall harvest, but then the floorboards trembled beneath my feet. That wasn't right. Coffee sloshed as I dropped the mug, the ceramic cracking against the tile, and I bolted out the front door in my socks, heart pounding. What I saw stopped me cold. There, atop a bulldozer like some deranged monarch, was Marla Hensley, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. She waved a stack of papers in one hand, her face twisted into a triumphant grin as the machine's steel jaws devoured my soybean field row by row. The stalks months of my sweat and care were shredded into dust. Over the engine's roar, she shouted, "This is for the community's good." My stomach churned. She couldn't know, that this wasn't just a field. It was a covert site for a NOAA weather balloon launch, set for 3 days from now, a classified operation I'd been contracted to support. Marla's reckless rampage wasn't just ruining my crop, it was threatening a federal mission. I sprinted toward her, dirt kicking up under my feet, yelling for her to stop. She didn't flinch, just hoisted her HOA documents like a shield and bellowed, "Your soybeans violate aesthetic standards and fire codes." It was nonsense. She'd invented her own authority and wielded it like a sledgehammer. The bulldozer churned forward, flattening another swath of my land, as if it meant nothing. I glanced back at my farmhouse, where a nondescript metal lockbox sat on the porch, holding encrypted gear for the balloon's telemetry. Marla was trampling hallowed ground, and she had no idea. My neighbor, Hank Grayson, a grizzled retiree who knew every secret in Willow Creek, burst from his house in a faded hunting jacket, clutching a cast-iron skillet like a weapon. "Marla, what in hell are you doing?" he roared, waving the pan as if he'd take on the bulldozer himself. She didn't blink. "This is an aesthetic emergency," she screamed. "I'm enforcing executive HOA cleanup." It was absurd. She'd fabricated a title and used it to justify her destruction. I couldn't stand by any longer. I raced inside, grabbed my phone, and dialed the encrypted emergency line I'd been told to use only in dire situations. This qualified. The operator patched me through to DR. Elise Warner, the NOAA project lead. I blurted out that an unauthorized civilian was bulldozing the launch site. After a long pause, her voice came through, calm but razor sharp. "Give me coordinates. We're sending a team. Stay clear until they arrive." Outside, Marla was still at it, her bulldozer carving through another row like a kid smashing a sandcastle. Neighbors had started to gather, some in shock, others filming. One guy was live streaming, narrating the chaos like it was a reality show. Marla's lackey, Trevor Klein, the HOA treasurer, stood nearby, waving a laminated map of the neighborhood, looking as lost as everyone else. When I demanded to know what law let them destroy private land, he mumbled something about Section 6, Rule 22B, on overgrowth hazards. He couldn't even explain it. Marla just shouted, "Soybeans are invasive in some regions." Hank looked ready to chuck his skillet at her. Then a kid in the crowd, barely 16, piped up, "Hey, isn't this where those unmarked vans showed up last week for some science thing?" My blood ran cold. The cover story that I was testing soil sensors for climate research was unraveling. Marla's stunt had drawn too much attention. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, she climbed down from the bulldozer, handed Trevor a clipboard, and marched toward me, her voice shrill. "You'll be billed for obstructing neighborhood harmony and unpermitted crop saturation." I snapped back. "That's not even a thing." She wagged a finger like I was a naughty kid. "Your soybeans are done." That's when the first black SUV rolled up, silent as a shadow, parking near the mailbox. For figures stepped out, suits, earpieces, and a tall woman in a NOAA jacket. "DR. Warner." Her eyes swept the wreckage, then locked on Marla. "Who authorized heavy machinery on a federally designated launch site?" she asked, her tone icy. Marla started to sputter about HOA protocols, but DR. Warner cut her off. "I asked a question, not for a story. You have 10 seconds before I call agencies with badges." Marla's clipboard trembled as she rambled about fire safety. DR. Warner snatched it, handed it to an aide, and walked to the flattened rows. Her gaze paused on a torn cable marker, and her jaw tightened. "We need aerial scans," she told her team. "This could be a breach." To Marla, she added, "You've potentially sabotaged a stratospheric climate mission tied to global satellite relays. That's a federal offense." For the first time, Marla faltered, her mouth opening but no words coming out. The crowd went silent. Hank smirked and muttered, "Told you." Dr. Warner turned to me. "We're locking this down. No one nears the site without clearance." A team member began unrolling temporary boundary tape. Another SUV arrived, this time the county sheriff, looking baffled by the scene. By dawn the next day, the field was a fortress. Generators hummed, radios crackled, and NOAA crews had cordoned off the area with fencing and security lights. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the transformation. My quiet life as a farmer with a side gig for the feds had become a high-stakes operation. Marla, meanwhile, was spinning a new tale. By noon, rumors swirled that she was passing out flyers at the gas station, claiming I'd leased my land to foreign spies, and that the SUVs were part of a secret land grab. She'd titled her pamphlets, "Conspiracy, What Your Farmer Won't Tell You." It was reckless, stirring paranoia so thick one neighbor called the sheriff, asking if hostile takeover laws applied to weather balloons. Dr. Warner didn't flinch. She held a briefing in my driveway for local officials with clearance, explaining the mission, a climate data experiment run by NOAA and European universities, tracking temperature, pressure, and ozone fluctuations. The field was chosen for its stable soil, low interference, and perfect latitude for jet stream access. She pointed to a map showing the damage-smashed sensors, severed cables, a twisted launch gantry. Marla's bulldozer had cost over $1 million in prep work and delayed an international project. Repairs would take 36 hours if the weather held. Marla wasn't done. She rolled up in an HOA golf cart with Trevor and another board member, Clara Voss, who clutched a megaphone like a parade marshal. They parked outside the fence, demanding NOAA vacate the community-controlled land, citing a non-existent HOA clause about inactive agricultural zones. Dr. Warner flashed her badge and warned of criminal charges. Marla, undeterred, accused NOAA of being a front for fracking under her house. Clara, with the megaphone, declared the field a protected community asset. Dr. Warner didn't argue. She just said, "Call press." Within hours, local reporters descended small outlets, bloggers, a regional weather channel tipped off about the launch. Marla saw cameras and flipped from tyrant to martyr, claiming she'd saved the town from ecological ruin. But Dr. Warner had anticipated this. A NOAA aide leaked a brief to the media, mission details, clearance codes, and the balloon's purpose. Public sentiment shifted. Footage of Marla's bulldozer rampage, her shouting about weeds, and the wrecked sensor grid went viral. People saw me shell-shocked in my yard, holding a NOAA directive, explaining this wasn't just soybeans, it was a national research site. Marla's allies crumbled. When reporters asked how she'd secured a bulldozer without permits, she blamed Trevor, who blanched. Clara admitted she'd warned against the stunt. The HOA board fractured, fingers pointing as the cameras rolled. Marla, desperate, announced a cease and desist against NOAA and me, citing mental distress and land fraud. Dr. Warner handed her a folder showing the field's federal designation, untouchable by HOA rules. Marla's face fell. She was powerless. The next day, I got a letter from the HOA demanding $7,900 for soil disturbance and non-compliant planting. I passed it to NOAA's legal team, who laughed and promised to bury the HOA in paperwork. That night, watching news clips of the balloon prep, I realized Marla's obsession with control had ignited a firestorm. She'd pushed too far, and now she'd face the consequences. 2 days later, the field was a hive of activity. NOAA crews worked round the clock, rebuilding sensors and stabilizing launch pads. A command trailer sat in the corner, drones buzzing overhead. Marla, undeterred, called an emergency HOA meeting, plastering flyers titled Community Safety versus Secret Projects. I went, curious to see who still backed her. The clubhouse was packed, residents whispering, some paranoid, others skeptical. Marla, in a sharp blazer, claimed the balloon was a cover for electromagnetic pulses harming wildlife and that I'd endangered the town. It was unhinged. I stood and asked, who thinks Marla had the right to bulldoze private land under federal contract? No hands rose. Clara, breaking ranks, admitted Marla acted without board approval. The room turned. Residents shouted, accusing Marla of reckless endangerment. A teen in the back snickered. She thinks Noah's hiding aliens. I left and headed to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Caleb Reed showed me a federal inquiry letter and confirmed an investigation into Marla's actions. The feds are watching, he said. Back at the field, repairs were nearly done. Dr. Warner handed me a revised launch plan 24 hours to go. That night, a drone caught motion near the sensor array. Security found a crude interference device, amateur but intentional. Footage showed a figure with Marla's distinctive gait and boots. The next morning, her house was swarmed by officers. A search warrant, triggered by the device and a partial fingerprint, led to the seizure of her phone, laptop, and HOA badge. Neighbors said she'd screamed at the cops, calling them traitors. Later, I learned Marla had been scheming with a developer, Vince Larson, to rezone my land for a luxury housing project. Her bulldozing was a calculated move to declare the field a nuisance and seize it. She hadn't counted on its federal status. Her plan had imploded. Launch day dawned clear. The balloon, a massive white orb, lay tethered across the field. Engineers moved with precision, helium hissing, sensors gleaming. Dr. Warner, clipboard in hand, ran final checks. Marla, now in custody, had tried one last stunt, sneaking to the launch trailer with a crowbar, ranting about alien beacons. She was caught, restrained, and arrested, screaming as she was led away. Crowds gathered along the road, snapping photos. The HOA, minus Marla, issued an apology and removed her as president. Dr. Warner handed me an observation pass. You earned this, she said. In the control trailer, screens buzzed with data. At 5:57 a.m., the countdown began. The field hushed. Clamps released, and the balloon rose slow, then swift, a speck in the sky. Cheers erupted. Hank wiped tears, clapping. Reporters filmed, and somewhere, Marla watched from a cell, her empire of petty rules in ruins. The balloon soared, sensors active, mission intact. Dr. Warner smiled. We did it. I looked at the scarred field and nodded. Justice had risen, like the balloon, into the stratosphere. What do you think? Was Marla a misguided crusader or a power-hungry villain? Should the HOA face legal consequences for enabling her? Could I have stopped her sooner? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more wild stories.